Consumer attitudes at Stylus is such a broad spectrum of topics and industries that we're looking at. So we'll address really, niche micro communities and how they're feeling. But ultimately, at its core, it's looking at these really broad topics and finding the specifics in them that brands need to know about. So we'll look at demographics, we'll look at generations, regions, class, race, gender, all these really weighty issues that we're thinking about that inform how consumers understand their lives and understand their own identities. The key pressures and challenges that we've seen consumers face over the past years have really increasingly been those kind of big ones that underpin our lifestyle. They are things like work, family, sustainability, health, and these are honestly probably a result of the pandemic, where we're starting to look at those bigger quality of life questions and understanding how these big systemic issues impact us more individually. And on one hand, it can seem like these are, problems that have always been there. These aren't necessarily trends. But I think that is exactly what's so exciting from a consumer attitudes perspective at looking at these much larger shifts, these much larger topics, that we're starting to see these things in new ways. And with this, there's also real challenges that we're seeing consumers engage with and tensions that emerge. So key pressure and challenge when it comes to this might be thinking, I know that something is going wrong in the world, but how do I understand my role in changing it? And so our job for our brand clients is to step in and show how people are navigating these tensions and the products and services that they want that aren't there, the ones that are there and doing a good job, and linking together this larger ecosystem shift at a consumer level. Researching at consumer attitudes is a pretty exhaustive process, and we're really trying to get in as many resources from as many places as possible to ensure that we can have a reach that looks at the broad spectrum of attitudes people have, that looks at different regions, looks at different ages, looks at different classes, races, genders, all of that together. So this is obviously no small task, and we're really, again, exhaustive in our process. We are reading a ton, so we read all the internet sometimes, it feels, but we're also reading academic articles, white papers, we'll look at scientific research. We're also talking a lot. We're talking to experts in the field. So we do interviews with psychologists, we'll talk to academics, we'll talk to brands as well to try and get their understanding of what are the real challenges in their specific industry sector. We're also talking amongst each other and trying to ask the questions that we're exploring in our own work, in our team, and across the wider Stylus team as well. We're always stress testing these problems that we're engaging with, because consumer attitudes is about how all of us feel about these essential issues. We're also really looking at data points as well, and I think that's an essential aspect for consumer attitudes, that while it is a lot about qualitative and how people feel about their lives, we also want to back it up by showing that here are the sales figures, here are the stats that show people feel this way. It's not enough for us to say something is a trend without showing that there's a strong evidence base there for how this is happening in the world now and how it might accelerate in the future. Taking a step back from looking at industries in particular allows us a breadth in consumer attitudes that inform some of our largest and, to me, most exciting pieces of work, like the consumer life cycle or consumer of 2040 or 2045. Our ability to take a long-term view on trends is part of what makes consumer attitudes such an essential resource for brands who are Stylus members. We're able to look at how trends mutate and evolve and how their past influences their present and shapes their future, to ultimately create the conditions that make consumers try to use these tools and try to engage with trends within the fabric of their everyday lives. We're not just looking at what might happen in the future, but we're trying to understand why things have happened in the past and how that sets the preconditions for brands to engage with consumers in future-facing ways.